Hi, it's Robbie from Southern California, and today I'm going to talk about vertical gardening. You could do it free, or you could do it on the cheap, but it's the easiest thing to do. Anybody can do it, and you can do it anywhere. It could be in your yard, your garden, a deck, a terrace, a patio. This is it. Is this beautiful? I set this up last year with 6 buckets. Now think about it. If you go behind the grocery store, if you go to a bakery, if you go to a food service, you can ask them for 5-gallon buckets because a lot of their food comes packaged in that. And let me say that most of that does get thrown out. Ask them for the buckets, and yes, you'll have it in white. But you know what? White buckets, free garden, that is great. Paint buckets. A lot of times you can find paint buckets, 5-gallon buckets. All you have to do is wash them out really good. I have checked them. They have a number 5 on it. You can grow in it. I went ahead and bought these because I wanted to go with a little color. You can get yellow buckets at Walmart. I did get the orange and the red ones at a place called Uline, ULINE.com. Their shipping's a little pricey, but otherwise for me, it was worth it because they have so many different colors. I wanted to get a few different buckets in. But look how easy it is to build. Now, wait a minute. You're saying, it's gonna fall over. These are locked with a watering system. It's a gravity watering system. You water the yellow bucket, it waters everything and trickles down. As far as locked, I'm going to show you the full video that I did a year ago because it's the best way to explain how to do this. It's really worth the time to do it. You only need a couple tomato stakes and a soldering iron. You can use a drill, but let me tell you something. Once you start using a soldering iron, it's going to change your life. It changed mine. I don't even know how I came up with it, but I was watching all these videos and these people out there trying to drill, other ones with nails trying to heat up on a fire. And I thought, wait a minute, I have a soldering iron. Why don't I just use that? And now I see everybody doing it. Going back to this is the easiest setup. If you were putting it on a balcony and you wanted to lighten it, you can easily lighten this setup by putting milk cartons inside, of course empty, let's say 1/2-gallon milk cartons. You could use styrofoam. I would wrap it in tulle so you can lift it out of the bucket if you wanted to. Or you could even use those airbags that come with a lot of packages we get to protect the package that we're getting inside, the item. You can put that on the bottom, and then later on they're easy to lift out if you're going to change it and throw it away. This beautiful garden, and I'm so fascinated with it, amazes me because it's only a year old and I didn't have to do anything this year. Let's go over that for a minute. These are peppers that came back from last year. They look like they were going to die. It looks so bad, but instead they came back to life in the spring. This I did buy. This is thyme, and I left it in the container. So now it is set root. I can't lift it out because it's set root inside here. This was a cutting of tricolored sage. That's growing fantastic. The tomato plant came up on its own, and so did that one. This is rosemary, as you can see, still in a pot. It's a cutting I did. And then the purple and the green basil down there, those reseeded themselves from last year. The walking onions, they just bursted back into life. And then I've got the green sage. Of course, you could put anything you want in there. You can grow whatever you want to grow. More peppers, more different types of tomatoes, eggplant. You can set it up any way you want. And if you have to sit while you garden, some of us have bad backs or just don't want to stand that long, you can sit on a chair and you can service this garden. It's so easy to take care of and maintain. And it takes care of itself. You water the yellow bucket, it trickles down to the red ones, and the red ones trickle down to the orange and yellow bucket in the center. That's why I color coded it, so I could easily explain why and how it was set up this way. It's got its own self-watering system. As long as you water the center one, it will water the entire unit. I absolutely love this setup. It's been so easy to work with. I am now going to drop in what I showed last year on how I put this together, the whole thing, because it's really worth watching, because once you've got it, it is in there for good. It's going to stay there until you lift it and take it apart. And real quick here, as you see, I left the handles. I could have actually used that to hold up my sage. I could have turned the handles to the back, but then it would have been harder if I decided to take it apart to lift out. This way, with all the handles on the side, I could easily pull out the stakes and then just take it apart. I have not had to refurbish this at all in any way for this year's growing. It is all coming back on its own. I loaded, you'll see in there how I loaded it up with just branches and matter from around the yard. I saved a lot on soil, and this has been such a joy to grow in. And the idea that I don't have to do anything this year but just reap the benefits of everything growing, that's really a good thing. Watch the video and you'll see exactly how I put it together. And I think a lot of you are going to want to make this too. And you could extend it. You could make it go all across the wall and build it up almost as high as you want. You could go one more layer. So this is the way I've decided to set up the buckets. Now I could leave them just the way they are, but here's the thing. They could rock a little bit. The buckets have a lip, very small lip. And I think it gives me just enough stability if I notched it and had the bucket kind of locked in. So that's what I'm going to carefully do. Let's move this bucket right now. Let's start with this. And so I've got to decide how much hangover I want, and that's pretty good. So let me see if I've got a pen or anything on me. I've got all kinds of stuff. Let's see. You know what? The bucket on top is too thick, so we're going to have to notch the bottom. I'm going to notch it right here and right here. So here's where I'll take over and try to explain what's going on. Now what you have to do is notch the buckets. Now you don't want to go all the way through because you don't want to create a hole where water is going to drain. You're just taking that little piece off. Most buckets do have a little bit of a lip, and we're working on the bottom only. So you're going to be removing basically 4 notches on the center buckets. This is a 3 stack. No notches on the bottom buckets. The 2 red, I'm glad I'm working with colors here. The 2 red buckets will have, each one will have 4 notches, which I clearly marked. And you'll see here on the yellow bucket how I had to work with my soldering iron. You know how I love my soldering iron. And just get a piece out. Now what happens is they stack. They lock like a puzzle, which is fantastic. And see, when you put them together, you get more stability that way. Otherwise, the buckets can slide. So now they're not sliding. And you can see the notches here and how they're being held onto each bucket. So the buckets are interlocked basically. But we can still do better to make sure we get them more secure on this vertical garden. Now what we need is drain holes. Remember, everything needs drain holes. The water cannot sit there. These are not water plants. So I make drain holes in them so they'll drain to each bucket as much as I can. On the top, the yellow bucket, I put drain holes on both sides. So looking down, you want to make sure that you put some holes on each side of the bucket and they will drain into the red buckets. And I do that with a soldering iron. Looking down, I can see, you can kind of see through the bucket a little bit. You can see exactly where to do it. You know, I put 4, 5, 8 holes, whatever you want to make. Just make sure it's going to drain, but you want it to drain straight down. So the red buckets are draining into the bottom buckets. So everything is draining into each other as far as the 2 buckets stacked and the yellow bucket. On the bottom, you can put the holes anywhere you want. But remember, they do need drain holes. So what I did was I put holes in the yellow one facing one way and then on the orange ones facing to each other. So this way I had one stream coming down through 2 buckets and another stream coming down the other way. You can put the holes anywhere you want. I put the holes a little bit up so it will retain a little bit of water since we live here in Southern California and we can get quite hot. So I leave about a ½ inch of water in it. So I put holes with my soldering iron about a ½ inch up on the bottom, and I did all 3 of the buckets. Again, you can put it on the bottom if you want. I just did mine about a ½ inch up on the side. So both orange buckets have holes on one side. I didn't do both sides. You can do both sides if you want. I just did one side of the orange bucket and one side on the yellow. Once I was done, I restacked them. And you've got the 2 oranges here on the bottom, yellow in the middle, and then the 2 reds, and then a yellow on the top. So the 2 reds now, they have holes. Now I've got holes on the red buckets going straight down. So one red bucket goes to, it drains into the yellow bucket and the orange bucket, and the other red bucket does the same thing. It drains into the yellow bucket and the orange bucket. So it's like a strawberry tower. It's going to all cascade down into the bucket, especially once you water the yellow bucket, and the yellow bucket's got holes on both sides, which drains into the 2 red buckets. Now for stability, I decided to go with 4-foot tomato stakes. Now here, what I'm going to do is make a large hole. It's going to go through the yellow bucket, through the red bucket, and into the bottom of the yellow bucket again. It's really going to lock it in good. I did explain myself while I was working, and I'm going to let that explain it because I think it could do better than me. And you'll be able to see exactly how I did this. And you could put a stake through here. Just drop it through both buckets, both sides. And it would come through here and go through to the bottom bucket. So now with the soldering iron, I'm going to make the hole in the yellow bucket on both sides. So there'll be 2 holes on the top bucket, big enough for the tomato stakes to go through. You could use rebar if you want, or something else. Then it's going to go through the 2 red buckets in the middle. They're each going to have 1 hole right now. And when it drops through, they will lock into the yellow bucket on the bottom. So now I've got the stakes going through the center bucket, through the red bucket, and into the yellow bucket. Now I'm going to make 1 more hole here, and it will go through there. So the red bucket will be anchored as well, the 2 red buckets to the orange bucket. All we have to do is make a hole. What's this? 1 hole. And we're done. It will drop straight in. So that's how easy it is to make a vertical garden. Someplace you could put anywhere. You can grow a ton of food out of it. We had so many tomatoes and so many herbs last year, and peppers, and it's still growing, and it's been phenomenal. Try it. If you can get those buckets for free, and I'm sure you can, it's going to cost you literally pennies to put this together. Hope I gave you some ideas. Make a vertical garden. It's going to be fun. You're going to see a whole bunch more pop up around here with all my new ideas that are coming soon. With that, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye.